There's probably going to come a time in your muscle car project where you're going to have to weld some tubing together. And you've seen lots of exhaust systems where you take mandrel bent sections, like this, and piece one to the next and make your custom exhaust. And there's always kind of a trick to making the seams look nice. And we've been playing with this stuff for quite a while. And somebody asked, what the right settings are and what the technique is to make clean welds on tubing. So we finally got a few ideas in our head to try this and show it to you. This piece here is a piece of scrap, and I've got one little tack weld on there, and you can see that black marker line. That's from a from a Sharpie marker. When you cut your stuff, you'll hold your tube in place and then mark it, and then bring it to the bench and weld it. And we're going to use the MIG welder for this today. You can use a TIG welder, or you can, if you're really good, you can probably stick weld this stuff. But what we're going to show is a technique I like to use where you use a lot of heat in a short weld time. So let's take a look at the welder real fast. This HTP MIG is set up on a setting of 5 on the main heat, and then it has like a fine heat over here on 4. So this is almost as hot as this welder will go. And our exhaust tubing isn't very thick. It's a thin-walled stuff. So you might be thinking, why do you want this much heat? Well, we got our wire speed dialed in to match this heat setting, and up on the top we have a pause time and a weld time. We're not using the pause time, we're doing that manually with our trigger, but the weld time is set for less than half a second. And the reason why I did that is when you pull the trigger, it's going to do a very quick, very hot tack weld, and then it's going to shut off. And that's going to allow me to let the weld cool, and then I can move to a different spot and do it again. Now I can set this pause timer so that it will automatically wait and weld, and then pause and weld. Today I'm not going to use that because I'm going to let this wait, a couple seconds between tacks, and I don't want my gas to continue to run. So I turn that off, and that much I can do myself. But this is going to guarantee that I've got the same exact weld size for every tack. So let's go weld this up. Okay, so we have our one tack weld and our piece of pipe over here. And again, we're going to use a series of short tack welds to stitch this closed. And one thing I like to do is I like to have the MIG wire basically touching where it's going to weld, because it seems to start cleaner that way. But you'll note the short weld time and the high heat as we do this. So here we go. Let it cool. Let it cool down for a sec. Cool down for a sec. Okay. At this point, we'd let this cool off for a minute, but you see what we got. We have a series of very flat welds, and that's exactly what we want. And if we took this piece, we have another one we did over here, and run this through the sandblaster, you'd see how nice and flat those welds are, okay? This is too high, this is too cold, and maybe too short of a time. By letting that tack really sink in, you end up with killer penetration. And if you wanted to dress this, you can just sand that in a belt sander and make it a completely seamless repair. But if you see on the inside, you still got great penetration in there, and your welds, your pipe's not going to leak, and it's all going to be nice and happy. So make it nice and clean, and that's what we try and do, make things nice and clean.